So I would like to invite Professor P.B. Kavikishor to come on the stage, and we will run through his entire show and his entire PPT. Yes, sir.
Can I have the lights off, please? Switch off those lights, please. Can you hear me? Yeah. At the outset, I like to thank Professor Paresh Bhatt, who is my mentor and guru, and Samarth Bhai, and also Professor Bharat Patel ji, who is a good surgeon here, and also all the physicians and clinicians who are sitting in front of me, for giving me an opportunity today to discuss something about the energy healing or Reiki healing. I am not an expert in this area. That's not my domain. I work with plant systems like Professor Paresh Bhatt ji. And Professor Paresh Bhai and also, Samarth Bhai, they have invited me here because, they are of the opinion that I can throw some light on what is energy healing, and then, I can contribute something on this particular thing for understanding of what is energy healing and all that. Can I have the next slide, please? But, let me confess and admit that I'm not an expert in this particular domain. All of you know that, our body, human body, in fact, the body of any organism, including plant systems and all animals, they are made up of cells. Very tiny particles are fundamental units of life, what we call as cells. And inside the cell, we have a nucleus where, the gene or the DNA or the genetic material is present. In addition to that one, we have within the cell, we have a very small, tiny particle, what we call as mitochondria. And all of you know that we take in oxygen and we release carbon dioxide. So when we take in oxygen, why should we take oxygen? What would happen if there is no oxygen? That is the question we need to ask. I cannot live. Suppose if I close my nose and my mouth, for 5 minutes, I'll die. I'll die because there is no oxygen in the body. When there is no oxygen, why should I die? We need to ask that question. Oxygen is important. It enters into the mitochondria that I am talking about. Mitochondria means that is the powerhouse of a cell. Powerhouse means, it generates energy. Right? Powerhouse means it generates, energy. This energy is very, very important for us to talk. But, Samarth Bhai has already informed you that, energy is important. Energy is there in our body to talk or to walk or to think or to sleep. Every time, every second, every millisecond of our life, we require energy. That energy is coming only from the mitochondria, from nothing else. Therefore, mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell. And what does it do inside the body? That we need to understand, So we take chapati or roti or jowar or whatever it is, or, chawal and all that we take. What does it contain? It contains, only carbohydrates in the form of glucose or in the form of fructose or starch, This gets digested. And, I'll not go into the scientific details of that one. But what I like to tell you is that, this particular, carbohydrate, it gets oxidized. Means, it gets broken down, Carbohydrate means, it contains carbon molecule. So that carbon molecule, when it is broken down, it goes out in the form of carbon dioxide. That is what we are breathing out, And then what happens is, during this process, it enters, the energy from the glucose molecule in the form of NADH or nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide reduced form. I will not go into the details of the science, but what happens to the glucose molecule that we are eating, or chapati that we are eating, or jowar that we are eating, or chawal that we are eating, or fruits that we are taking is, this, glucose molecule or carbohydrate molecule in the body, within the cell, it enters into the mitochondria. When it enters, it passes through the mitochondrial, different parts of the mitochondria, and then what is generated is electrons and protons. And that I'll tell you what happens there. These electrons and protons, if there is nothing, to receive these electrons and protons, we'll die. Therefore, oxygen is going to help us to absorb these electrons and protons within the mitochondria. If oxygen is there, not there, then we will die. If protons and electrons are not generated, then also we will die. Therefore, oxygen is helping us to receive electrons and protons within the mitochondria. That's all I can tell you, because, much beyond that one, I will not go into the details of what is the science and all that. So remember that mitochondria are the powerhouses of cell, where energy is in terms of adenine triphosphate is generated, and then what happens here is oxygen is going to accept the electrons and protons. So therefore we are living. But we are also dying because of oxygen. You may say, you are contradicting your statement. That's not correct. What I am trying to tell you is, that we are living, because of oxygen. We are also dying because of oxygen. The dark side of oxygen is directly related to its electronic distribution. What does it mean? If oxygen is available in the form of molecular oxygen, it would not injure your body. It absorbs electrons and protons. But if it is available in the form of, atomic form, then what happens is this atomic, oxygen, it can receive, if it receives electrons, actually what happens there in the electron transport chain of mitochondria is, electrons and protons have to be transported continuously throughout, whether you are sleeping or whether you are, in pathogenic condition or whether you are healthy. 365 days this process goes on as long as we are alive. That process stops only when we die. Therefore, what happens here is electron flow. It happens continuously in all the cells. There are 10 trillion cells in the body. In all the 10 trillion cells, this process of electron transport goes on. Are we not breathing in and breathing out, during sleep also? Therefore, this process is continuously taking place, So, 4 electrons and, some, the protons, they enter into the, oxygen, So, oxygen absorbs these electrons and protons and forms into or gets reduced to water. Right? Suppose if 4 electrons, if they are not transported, if only 1 electron gets transported, it happens also in the body, then what happens? Then oxygen will become a reactive molecule. Atomic oxygen is reactive, not molecular oxygen. That's all you have to remember. So therefore, it's a paradox that we are living because of oxygen. We are also dying because of oxygen. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah. We live because of oxygen, we also die because of oxygen. Each oxygen atom has 1 unpaired electron in its exterior valence, and whereas molecular oxygen has 2 unpaired electrons. That is little bit of chemistry. You don't have to understand what all this one, but what happens is, oxygen, if it is available in the molecular form, it does not do any harm to our body. Rather, it does good to our body by absorbing electrons and protons and converting itself into or getting reduced itself into water. That's all. End of the story. But if it is available in atomic form, atomic oxygen, that is what we call as oxygen radical. What does it do in our body? Atomic oxygen or reactive oxygen species, so-called reactive oxygen species, when they receive electrons, if only 1 electron is transferred to oxygen or 2 electrons are transferred into oxygen, then this oxygen becomes a reactive molecule. It reacts with our body. What does it do? It removes it digests the cell membrane. It digests the proteins, or it breaks down the proteins. It breaks down the DNA. These are all scientific things that I'm talking about. And that is, it is there in the books, it is there in the published papers also. So reactive oxygen species, they damage your cell membrane, they damage the protein, they damage the, the DNA and all that, So if they are produced in large quantities. But, reactive oxygen species, they also do something good to your body. What does it do? If they are produced in low quantities, it triggers some of the DNA molecules or genes, and then, they act as secondary messengers. Suppose, if the outside temperature is 45 degrees or 40 degrees centigrade, my DNA has to know that the temperature outside is 40 degrees. Why does it know? Why it has to know? because it has to produce heat shock proteins in the body so that, our body feels good, These heat shock proteins are necessary to me when the temperature outside the environment is around 40 degrees or 45 degrees. Or if the temperature is 0 degrees centigrade, when you go to, America or somewhere, you feel that it is very cold, Then also my body has to feel it is pretty cold. How the message is carried to the DNA? It is these reactive oxygen species which carry these, these messages. Therefore, the reactive oxygen species act as secondary messengers, what we call as. So they transduce the signals. They transfer the signals to the DNA. So they are important. Without, reactive oxygen species, we cannot live. We will die immediately. But if they are produced in low quantities, they are good to our body. But if they are produced in large quantities, they damage. They damage our DNA, they damage our proteins or enzymes, they damage the lipid membranes. Once the lipid membrane is damaged, cell apoptosis or cell death occurs. That means, our death occurs. So now, go to the next slide, please. So what happens here is, so mitochondria in our body, they produce continuously the energy. If energy is not produced, in the form of ATP, we'll die. That's what I said, And, what happens here is electrons, they are passed to oxygen, converting, oxygen to water. And then, during glucose oxidation, this process continues. Next slide, please. Yeah. Energy of electrons and protons. What is, you may be thinking, what is this energy and all that, Electron has an energy. It has a free energy. When it is moving, it is losing some energy. Therefore, it is able to move. If I am walking means, that means, some of my energy is lost. Similarly for the electrons also. When they move inside the cell, they lose some energy. That means what does it mean? It has some energy levels. And that energy is, by spending that energy, it is able to move. So it moves within the mitochondria to water, to convert water into to oxygen, to convert oxygen to water. So electron has some energy which is negatively indicated there, and then proton it is a positive symbol that I have represented there, H plus that I have represented, and the mass of a proton is approximately, or the electric charge of proton is +1 E. E means elementary charge. Elementary charge of a proton is E, that is represented in terms of E only. So they have some energy. So when the glucose is oxidized in the body, when it is digested rather, in simple terms, Samarthbhai says, is it the same process, oxidation and then digestion, they are the same process, almost similar. In a layman's term, I would say it is digestion, and in a scientific term, we say glucose oxidation. Right? So next slide, please. So they have, remember that they have some energy levels. Therefore, we have to speak about that one. And now, here, the production of reactive oxygen species. As I say, that, when oxygen is receiving electrons in not proper form, but receiving electrons in an imbalanced way, that means, only one electron if it receives, or one proton if it receives, or, if it receives only 2 electrons and 2 protons at a time, then oxygen becomes the reactive oxygen species, and it becomes, singlet oxygen, it becomes hydrogen peroxide, it becomes, hydroxyl radical, it becomes superoxide radical, it also becomes into peroxyl and then, hydroperoxyl and alkoxyl radicals. And all of them, they do damage. They are not only produced in mitochondria, but also in other, in the cell, other areas in the cell. Next slide, please. So now, other cellular sources of reactive oxygen species are also there. For example, they are produced in the neutrophils. They are produced in the, doctors who are sitting there, they know what are neutrophils, what are monocytes, and what are cardiomyocytes, or what are endothelial cells, and xanthine oxidase, that is an enzyme or protein, and cytochrome P450, they are well aware of cytochrome 450, lipoxygenases, which are associated with lipids and all that, and nitric oxide synthesis. Without nitric oxide synthesis, we will die. But, these reactive oxygen species are produced, not only in mitochondria, but also elsewhere in the cells, such as, when the NADPH molecule is getting oxidized, NADPH is a reduced molecule. When it gets, oxidized, there also the reactive oxygen species are formed. So it is not necessary that reactive oxygen species have to be formed only in mitochondria. They can be formed elsewhere in the cells during the process of some reactions or metabolic reactions, what we call, or physiological reactions, what we call. Next slide, please. Now, reactive oxygen species, what do they do exactly in our body? Then I'll link it with Reiki healing or energy healing. Now, it can cause cancer. Why does it can cause cancer? Because it digests the lipid membrane, or it breaks down the lipid membrane of the cell. Once the cell membrane is damaged, then apoptosis occurs or cell death occurs. Therefore, it causes cancer. Right? And then it can also cause cardiovascular diseases, maybe heart attacks, maybe BP and all that. Then they also cause aging. I'm aging because of production of reactive oxygen species. That means it's a natural process. It's a natural process. Aging, suppose if you reduce the production of reactive oxygen species, that is what some people have done. And what happened was the aging process has been slowed down. A mouse, instead of living only for a few months, it has lived for years. In other words, if you can control the production of reactive oxygen species in the body in a balanced way, then you can live longer. That is the whole essence of this energy healing. I'll talk about a little bit later. And then, augmentation of the immune system, it increases the immune system. It also activates the inflammasome. This inflammasome is a complex. Suppose if some injury takes place to my hand or leg or somewhere, then inflammation occurs. Pain occurs. Right? So there also the reactive oxygen species are formed. In those cells also which are damaged, the reactive oxygen species are formed. So it triggers the inflammasome, reactive oxygen species. And then for sperm infertility, male infertility, female infertility, and pregnancy complications, diabetes, all these things are caused by the reactive oxygen species. So you need to remember that reactive oxygen species are very, very dangerous if they are produced in large quantities. But now if they are produced in small quantities, then they are not dangerous. Next slide, please. Now, the reactive oxygen species can damage the cell. We have published this data. They really literally damage the DNA. If the DNA is damaged, nothing works in our body. If the genes are damaged, how do you survive? We cannot survive. So therefore, we have to be careful. We have to be careful with the production of reactive oxygen species. But Samarth Bhai has the ability to control that one. I'll tell you how he does it. And now, the reactive oxygen species, they damage the proteins. As I said, when I say proteins, they may include, the enzymes also, and also the DNA. And then, reactive oxygen species can affect the cellular macromolecule means, the DNA as well as the proteins. Both of them are called as macromolecules. So, the destruction of proteins by the reactive oxygen species can lead to alterations in the electric charge. And also enzymatic inactivation. So enzymes will not function there if they are produced in large quantities. And also there would be a disturbance or, balance is totally, disturbed because of these reactive oxygen species. Next slide, please. Yeah, they stimulate the genes in the body. As I said, they act as secondary messengers. The reactive oxygen species, they act as secondary messengers. If they act as secondary messengers, then they can stimulate some of the genes that are associated. For example, I said, when there is a temperature outside, when there is a temperature of 40 degrees or 45 degrees centigrade, heat shock proteins have to be produced in my body. How are they produced in my body? Unless the body feels or unless the body receives some signal from somewhere. That signal is sent or transduced because of the reactive oxygen species. Reactive oxygen species will go and bind to that particular part of the DNA and trigger the heat shock proteins and heat shock factors. And therefore, my body survives even at the 40 degrees centigrade or 45 degrees centigrade. Similarly, cold shock proteins. If the temperature is around 0 degrees or minus 5 degrees centigrade or minus 10 degrees centigrade. We can survive for some time at -10 or -5 also, provided if you have proper things. So therefore, the point there is, that they stimulate the genes in the, in the body. Next slide, please. Now, what is energy healing? Samarth Bhai has already informed, what is energy and what is this healing and all that, So energy healing, it is, he doesn't touch any patient. Samarth Bhai does not touch any patient, No touch, but healing. And the healing system is based on the fundamental principle that the body has the innate ability to heal itself. That's what I was discussing in the morning, with Bharat Patel ji. So he informed me that during the COVID times, that we have, our innate immunity. Okay, we have also acquired immunity. That's a different story. We are acquiring immunity by giving vaccines and other things, But what he believes is that innate ability of the system, innate immunity of the system is very, very important to control such pathological conditions, or, to get out of those pathological conditions. So, energy healing is an energy no-touch healing system based on the fundamental principle of that body. It has the innate ability to heal itself. What, Samarth Bhai does is, he would not touch you, but, he would transfer some energy. How he transfers, it's a mystery, but he only can explain that one. And then energy healing utilizes the life force. You know that pretty well, prana vayu, what we call. That is life force. Oxygen. Oxygen is prana vayu, right? So that prana vayu, it has some energy, right? So that life force, it has some energy. Prana, in Sanskrit means, life force or energy only, It is practiced by many, pranic healers or Reiki healers or energy healers. Next slide, please. And energy healing heals the whole spectrum. He also said, there are different ailments. Physical ailment. That means, if my hand is injured here, I feel pain here in my hand. That is what is called as, physical ailment. Suppose, if I have some psychological problems, that is what is called as mental ailment. He said, there are mental ailments also. He also said emotional ailment. What is this emotional ailment? Suppose, I'm loving a girl, or a girl is loving a boy. What happens is, if the love fails, they feel emotional. Or if my father dies, or my mother dies, or somebody in my family dies, I get emotional. Is it not? That emotional feeling will be there for some time. And that is also a stress. In all stress conditions, irrespective of whether it is a physical stress or emotional stress or, the mental stress, the reactive oxygen species are produced. Therefore, but for all these things, Samarth Bhai has an answer, which I will talk about little later. But what these, physical conditions or psychological conditions can do to us is they produce, the reactive oxygen species. And thousands of so-called miraculous healing stories we have heard and we have seen, we have witnessed, we have testimonies, And then it can heal. Reiki healing or energy healing can do miracles, If I am getting headache, he can cure that one. And he can cure, flu or, ulcers or mental illness or migraines or multiple sclerosis or cancer. In fact, I have read, several things before coming over here, what exactly this is, because I did not know what all these things are. Then, I have read about, a clinician or, Reiki healer, controlling the cancer also. It happens. I tell you it happens because of, I just now was talking to Dr. Bharat Patel ji. He was also informing me that because of slow breathing or meditation or, slow breathing, we are able to control several diseases or pathological conditions. Next slide, please. Now, the life energy or prana is all around us. Don't think that, prana is not there. It is there in you. Life energy or prana is already there, But what, Samarth Bhai is doing is, he gathers the universal energy. And then he transmits that energy to a person who is a patient, who is suffering from certain illness, maybe physical, maybe emotional, maybe mental. Right? So, we are all, but we are all bestowed with the innate mechanism of healing and recovering. That he is trying to accelerate by some means. Samarth Bhai is trying to accelerate that innate ability to heal yourself, to heal body itself. So that is what exactly he does. And then when we increase the pranic life force in the body, automatically it gets healed up. And Bharat Patel ji, he is going to expand on this one. So next slide, please. So prana is life or energy. All matter is made up of energy only, irrespective of anything. All matter is made up of energy only. And our feelings and thoughts. Since yesterday we have been discussing with Dr. Samarth Bhai, and he was also saying that whether the feeling also is a kind of energy or not. Yes, feeling is also a kind of energy. And then this energy connects with the energy in the universe. And then all of us indeed have some inborn capacity to heal the pathological conditions that we get. Next slide, please. Now, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. That is the law of the thermodynamics only. I did not create that one, but that's the law of thermodynamics. But energy can be transformed. For example, if you take coke, we can heat water and steam is generated. That is another form of energy. So you are converting one form of energy into another form of energy. Right? So if we can use this fundamental principle of science effectively in our lives, then we can use the available energies and all negativities into into healing forms of energy. So in other words, what I am trying to tell you here is that this energy that I am talking about is very, very important, for Dr. Samarth Bhai to heal those pathological conditions, or to restore energy and then thereby, restoring the health in such people who are suffering from certain ailments. Next one. So you can transform stressful events also into peace of mind. How he does it, that's a different story altogether. But I'll tell you, I'll give an example. Suppose if I am suffering from some emotional feelings, if my father passes away, I will have some emotional feelings. But through Reiki healing or energy healing, he can control the productions of, the negativities in our body. That's what he said, in his preface, that is during the introductory lecture, So he can control those negativities in our body and brings the positivities in the body, So here what is a positive or what is the negative thing, For example, if I am chewing tobacco, that is a toxic relationship that I have. If I am smoking or if I am drinking alcohol, madra pina, wo sab kuch, they're all toxic relationships in my body, right? I have a relationship with wine. I have a relationship with tobacco chewing, or smoking, or something else and all that, Okay, or maybe any other thing, or opium, all those things, So, but you can use the knowledge of energy transformation to transform sickness into healthy condition. That is what we call as energy medicine or energy healing. Next slide, please. So, prana is called the breath of life. So he also mentioned, Samarth Bhai also has mentioned, that it is only because of the we inhale and then we exhale. We inhale oxygen and then we exhale carbon dioxide. And then, this oxygen has life, it has energy. It is saving us. It is saving us from death and all that, Therefore, there is energy everywhere. There is energy as long as our life is there, the energy is there, Once that energy goes out of our body, then we are good or equal to that of a dead body or non-living body, And then prana is that it's an unseen force. No one has seen prana, right? But we know that we are living. Therefore, it is, we know that it is prana. Prana is there in my body, in your body, in all living organisms. But no one has seen. Did anyone see the prana? No. But prana exists. And then it gives you the awareness and consciousness. He was also talking about the inner consciousness. It gives you awareness and consciousness to experience living, while the non-living cannot experience. You may say that, okay, how do you say that you are living? You may feel that I am dead, but I am feeling, I am hearing, I am sleeping, I am eating, I am tasting, everything I am doing. Therefore, I am conscious. What does it mean? It means that I am alive. But a dead body cannot do that one. That means, it is non-living object. Right? So, prana is the life-sustaining force which enables to live and experience the events of life. That is exactly, precisely what I am talking about. Next one. Yeah. So, prana is the innate, unseen energy. And, when prana does not exist, we cease our life, or the life is ceased, totally. Prana is the innate, unseen energy required for successful accomplishment of certain things. Next slide. And then, the principle of energy. What is the principle? Samarth Bhai says, we are healing this one. Not only Samarth Bhai, all pranic healers or energy healers. What they do is, they are trying to heal certain unhealthy conditions and bringing or restoring energy or restoring, the healthy conditions in the body, So the principle is based on the concept that every living organism has some innate ability to cure himself or herself, And this healing process can be accelerated by enhancing the pranic life force of an individual, or energy healers, I cannot tell you the secrets of pranic healers, how do they do and all that. But, they gather the universal energy. Next slide, please. They gather the universal energy and then, they pump that one to the patient without touching, the body of a patient, They don't touch the body of a patient. But they increase the energy levels in the body, and at the same time, if the energy levels of a body are increased, the reactive oxygen species will also come down. That is what exactly they do. And by doing so, the health is restored in those people who have those pathological conditions. And then, what is the relation here with aura or chakra balancing? How exactly these people do, pranic healers, they do. Energy healing makes you aware of the aura around you. Every human being, every living organism has some aura. And then the energy centers operating around you. And there are, we know that there are 7 chakras, and 8 glands, Next slide, please, And these 7 chakras, they are in, reflected there, in different colors, And these 7 chakras, they are related to the glands that are present in our body, Next slide, please, So, they are the energy centers. These chakras are energy centers. These 7 chakras with different colors, they coincide with a gland in the physical body. Right? There may be 8 glands, if I am correct, Dr. Bharat therefore, there are 8 glands, and these 7 chakras, they coincide with these 8 glands and also. If one chakra somewhere in the body, if they are starting from here up to here, any chakra, if it is disturbed, because they are energy centers, that means, if more reactive oxygen species are formed there, then what happens is, one of the glands will be disturbed, or corresponding, the body organ may be disturbed, and that may get diseased. So some people ask me, sir, why we are getting only, cancer in the lung, or in the heart, or in the liver or prostate, or only in the uterus and all that. We get cancer, of course, everywhere. But what happens is, maybe that particular chakra is, it has become totally imbalanced, and then more reactive oxygen species are produced in this particular organ of the body. Therefore, we are getting the cancer there in a uterus or in a prostate. Now, the astral, a little bit about astral bodies. No one has seen the astral bodies. Chakras also no one has seen. They are unseen. But philosophers believe, and Reiki healers, pranic healers, they believe that these chakras are there. They might have experienced, but I did not experience. Nobody can experience that one. Only, it is like prana only. We can experience the prana, but I don't know. I have not seen the prana. how prana looks like. Or nobody can see that one, So I was discussing, in fact, with Dr. Mehta's, who is a cardiac thoracic surgeon in Baroda. I was discussing that story with Patelji and also with Professor Bhatbai. So the astral body is the energy body residing inside the humans, So each physical body part has a corresponding astral body also. It's a subtle body, very small body, very unseen body, that is present inside the body. Next slide, please. So we cannot see the chakras, we cannot see the astral bodies, but philosophers believe it is there. How this energy healing works in the body, when there are imbalances in our energy field, what does it mean? When I say that imbalance in our energy field, in our body, that means, the energy, mitochondria are not functioning properly. Mitochondria do not function in the old age. But a boy can run from here to there 100 times, but I cannot run it. Why? Because the boy, the mitochondria are working very well in a boy, but not in an old man like me who is 70 years old or 80 years old. So it means, our energy levels would depend upon the functioning of mitochondria. The energy producers are the powerhouses of the cells. So that we should not forget. And at the same time, there is an imbalance in the energy level. What does it mean? It means, the body is not able to produce enough energy which is required for the body. And at the same time, there is a more production of reactive oxygen species. This more production of reactive oxygen species, it imbalances the entire thing. Homeostasis is disturbed, or the balance is disturbed between the reactive oxygen species production, oxygen levels, and other things in the body. Once that is disturbed, we'll go into the pathological conditions. What Samarth does here is, he would try to restore the balance, by collecting the universal energy and then pumping that one into your body and then increasing the oxygen levels and then reducing the reactive oxygen species levels, thereby healing the pathological conditions, or by restoring the health in your body. So consequently, it transfers the life force to the patient from the universe. Next slide, please. So energy or Reiki healers, they access the universal energy. That's what I was talking about. So they access the universal energy and transport the energy into the patient's body. So don't ask me how do they do that one, but ask Samarth Bhai how he does it. Next slide, please. So precisely, energy healers, they cleanses your body. They clean your body from the toxic substances. What are these toxic substances? The reactive oxygen species. So he removes the toxic substances or the reactive oxygen species from your body. Of course, we have, yesterday also we were discussing with Patelji and also other doctors who are sitting here. We have to take more of antioxidant molecules. What are these antioxidant molecules? Suppose, beetroot that contains, beta-cyanins. Carrot, which contains, beta-carotene. Or, the flavonoids and carotenoids are present, in all the fruits, like mango or sapota or, grapes. I was also discussing all these things yesterday. Grapes contains, in fact, you should consume black grapes, more of black grapes, because that contains, a compound called, resveratrol. That is the molecule of the century. It removes or scavenges the reactive oxygen species. It removes the oxygen species. So beta-carotene, that means lycopene also. Lycopene means, it's a compound in the tomato. So you should eat more tomatoes, more carrots, more beetroot, more, fruits, especially colored fruits, and similarly colored vegetables, we should take more, because they contain more of antioxidative molecules. These antioxidative molecules, they can detoxify. At the same time, Samarth Bhai also can detoxify these reactive oxygen species or toxic substances from your body. Right? At the same time, our body also has some enzymes, like ascorbate peroxidase, glutathione peroxidase, or catalase, or, other enzymes which can, scavenge or, remove the reactive oxygen species. For example, superoxide dismutase enzyme, it can convert hydrogen peroxide, which is highly reactive, into water and oxygen. Water and oxygen are not reactive, but hydrogen peroxide is reactive. Therefore, this enzyme that is present in your body can detoxify your body by converting hydrogen peroxide, one of the reactive oxygen species, into a less reactive molecule or no reactive molecule like that of water and oxygen. But Samardhbhai also can do that one, but somehow, by some means, right? So therefore, we need to understand that, the antioxidative molecules are very important. At the same time, the antioxidant enzymes, antioxidative enzymes are also very important in our body. Next slide, please. Now, how effective is energy healing? Several people ask, and most of you may ask, is it effective? That's what? That's the question, That if prana energy is low, we are unhealthy. You know that one. But, he is trying to, rectify some of these imbalances. And then, trying to restore energy, trying to restore, healthy condition in your body, or in a pathological condition, So we have ample testimonies where energy healing has been found highly efficacious, I have read, before coming over here, because I do not know anything about, pranic healing or Reiki healing, I have read few, testimonies, that have been documented in the clinical pathological conditions. What, I was just surprised to know, you may not believe, I was just surprised to know some of these pranic healers, they have the ability to control, they have the ability to restore energy and restore the, health conditions in several people who are suffering from very dangerous diseases like that of cancer. So what I mean, ultimately the convey home message, the take home message is that, pranic healing or energy healing, it has the ability to restore energy and also restore, health conditions by accelerating the innate immunity in your body. Next slide, please. So, how to link the reactive oxygen species with that of, last slide, how to link the reactive oxygen species with that of, Reiki healing or, energy healing, If reactive oxygen species are produced in excess quantities in the body, we become sick, right? That's what I said, So, reactive oxygen species must be detoxified or they must be removed, If they are not removed, then, we become sick, That is, the thing, Energy healers, when they boost the energy levels in the patient, and also antioxidative enzymes, they become active again and detoxify our body. That is how they restore energy, they restore health in your body. If you are sick, Next slide, please. Yeah. Sick patients become healthy again by energy healing. Right? So that is how, by detoxification of the body, they become, healthy again. Next, last slide. That's all. Yeah. Thank you all for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, I'll be happy to take any questions, maybe after Paresh Bhai and then Patel Bhai, discuss these things. At the end, I'll be able to answer all your questions.
Definitely. Thank you so much, sir.